You're protecting your mind so you can deal with situations when they come up.
You're practicing the skills now so that when you get into a place where it is absolute chaos and stress, you don't have to think about it.
I think that's really important to really do the work when you're in a good space and you feel like you don't need it.
We all have different thresholds and different tolerance levels. You're listening to the Apology Void podcast.
Welcome back. Happy 1st of July to our Aussie listeners, because we're recording this on the 1st of July. And today we're talking about minding your mind.
Minding your mind. What does that mean for you, Sal? I have a good impression of what that means, but I'd love to know a little bit about what that means to you.
I guess we are going to attempt, well, from my perspective, to sum up how we protect our mind and how we show up. Last week we spoke about responses to events and finding silver linings. And to do that, we have to have strength in our mind. We have to do things that give us positive thoughts, etc. So I guess touching on things like that. But you threw a curveball before we started. Katie was like, oh, and also I haven't thought about that. I can't remember what I said now, but I'm pressing go before we talk about it. Now I'm like left in suspense about what but I'm sure you're saving it. So we'll get there. It's going to be a surprise for all of us, guys. I'm not going to know what's coming. You're not going to know what's coming, which you never do. So it's normal for you, but not normal for me. So be ready for it.
I just kind of before we jumped on, I was like, bing, 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 bing. Did you know the astrology? Also, I want to come back to this. Also, I think this thing. Also, it's Mercury retrograde. Also, Sal, I'm hitting go. And I just kind of left you there with that. So I figured it would inspire good conversation.
Well, definitely. Because you threw about 20 different topics, #ADHD, in a matter of 30 seconds. And I was like, okay, yep, that's all the topics there. So minding your mind topics, well, I'll let you lead the way then, because clearly there's many, many things in your brain.
There's a lot in my brain, and I have to be very, very mindful of what's going on in my brain because it's so easy to get trapped in certain feelings or the future or the past rather than being present and being here and where you're supposed to be. It's really easy to get caught up in all of the other things and allow ourselves to spiral or get stuck or get overwhelmed or any number of things simply by not paying attention to what our brain is doing. Our brain has so many different things bouncing around all the time, all these different thoughts. You're processing information constantly. And if you're not aware of the feelings that you're experiencing, it's so easy to let them take control. It's like people who say, oh, I couldn't help myself when they have a negative reaction to something or they have an anger outburst. That's not true. You just haven't practiced. You just haven't practiced how to take control of that and how to be mindful of your responses.
100%. And this is, I guess, on topic, but a little bit side note. I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I was talking about a response that someone had to a situation that we were in. So we both knew this person. Something happened, there was a response from someone else in the group. And I was just referring to, at some point in our life, we have to acknowledge that there's a choice, right? So you spoke about the present, and that's what's brought this up, because I think that's a really important point to start on. But in this situation, we will say they brought up a lot of the past issues and things. And that no longer justifies behavior, I guess. It's very hard without context, and it'll take an hour to get into context. But I guess what I'm saying is when we focus on the present without going, oh, that's happened to me in the past, so I have a right to, behave this way and have this outburst or whatever, it actually doesn't, because we have a choice. And we can choose to not be angry. We can choose to not be hateful or hurtful or upset or etc. in situations. But being in the present is how we do that. So focusing on the now rather than, oh, it's always just been this way. But it doesn't have to be that way from now on. You know what I mean? So look at our mind right now. Like, what can we do right now? Does that make sense? I feel like I just
Yeah.
derailed it a little bit, but it just brought up that conversation, that situation.
Well, you don't know. You get stuck in a reaction as opposed to creating your outcome. And, we talked about silver linings. And again, that's a practice thing, but you have to be aware of what's going on in the present in order to actually practice seeing the positive outcome of things, like we talked about last time. So, to give an example, I recently was having a fear-based response to something, and I got really upset. And it took me a minute. I was like, this feels like it's a lot of a response for a very small thing. And so what I did is I sat with that. I went internal and went, okay, where's that fear coming from? Because you are not actively in danger. There is no bear coming at you. There is nothing going to harm you. So where is the fear coming from? And it was a preconditioned past response. So by grounding myself in where I was currently, recognizing there was nothing around me to actually be fearful of, and saying to myself, this is a past experience that's informing my current present, we could actually let that go and say, okay, now I'm aware that I have to work on that, and I have to be mindful of when that comes up in the future so that I can literally reprogram my brain to not have that same reaction.
No, 100%. And look, there are things outside of our immediate control as well. And I acknowledge, and we both acknowledge that, trauma, there's PTSD, there are many conditions that may inhibit those things on your own, or you may take a lot more time. And that's okay. We're not saying that you can just switch that off and everything's going to be great. That's not a thing. But as well as being in the present, like, focusing on the present situation, also living in the present at, like, you as a person, rather than living in the past or thinking about what's going to happen in the future. That can create like overwhelm and overthinking. If you're living on what could happen if this, what could happen if this, we all do it. I do it every day. Overthinking things and going, oh yeah, but changes our response instantly, right? Whereas if you just go, okay, so right now, what information do I have to work with? What is the best decision right now in this moment for me and to create that positive outcome? That's going to help you like make choices and find silver linings and mind your mind. But I guess, yeah, mind your mind. So we've started like present. I think that's a really good point to start, like being in the present things. But there are things that we can do to help us get our mind running on the right frequency or running from a positive space. Or does that make sense? So whether that's, we spoke about things like yoga before, because you were talking about being in the car a lot, and I mean this is physical, but yoga is also very good for the mind too. So there are things like yoga and reading and mindfulness and journaling, and we have spoken about these topics before, but I think they're really important to touch on again, because that's how we bring ourselves to the present and are able to be mindful in situations.
Yeah. No, I love that. You have a toolbox and you have to use your tools that are inside it in order to support yourself. Yoga is one of those tools. Understanding your brain through talking to a therapist is a tool. Journaling is a tool. This morning, even, because I was thinking about this as you were talking, I was like, I was in a funk this morning. And I was in a really funky headspace where I did not want to get out of bed. I did not want to move my body. I just literally didn't want to talk to anyone. So I recognized that, because I'm like, this is not a good place. We cannot sit here all day. So the first thing that I did was I named it. I said to my partner, I could lay in bed all day. And then I went into the why. Why do you feel this way? I didn't sleep well. I've been in a lot of pain. I also have been traveling nonstop. So I recognized the why I felt that way. I laid in bed. I worked from bed for about an hour or two, recognizing I have this chronic illness that also depletes my energy, and then employed the other tools, which were taking a shower, putting on real people, as I call them, real people clothes,
Not
and going
pajamas.
yeah, exactly, not pajamas, and going for a walk. Those three things I know always help my headspace, but I had to recognize what was going on in order to provide myself the opportunity to function and move that way. So that's like a little example from this morning of
Mm.
how I actively take control of that and say, no, 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 we are not going to choose this today. No.
Mm. And great example, because I feel like, we again, I'll reiterate this. I've said this before. We speak about this, but you and I have also done a lot of work already, right?
Mhm.
So it's not like you just woke up and you were like, oh, I have all these strategies in my toolbox. I can just function when I'm feeling like shit. No, you've already done heaps and heaps of work, as have I, heaps and heaps of work. And before we started recording, I was saying to Katie, so right now, my plate is real exploding. Like, she full, and things just keep on coming on top. It's like I'm in a buffet and I don't know where the limit is. I'm just, not that it's in my control, some things are just being piled on. But because I've done a lot of work in the past, it's just me. It's also about protection. I want to come back to that. So remind me if I forget. But it's like, if you need to do work behind the scenes or in the dark when no one's watching, out of those toolbox, to be able to prepare yourself to manage situations when they come up, right? And don't get me wrong, we're not perfect. Like, we're teetering on the edge over here. Like, the overwhelm is real, but I can manage my response to situations, and I can because of work that I have done in the past or now still doing, etc. But I just want to come back to protection, because when we talk about minding your mind, it's like protecting your mind, right? So you're protecting your mind so you can deal with situations when they come up. Does that make sense? Is that a good way of putting it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
Well, I guess I have a follow-up to that. How are you protecting your mind right now with so much happening? Like, I personally know just from talking to you that there is so much. Like, it is not a normal person version of so much. This is like amped up so much. So, like, how do you protect your brain during these spikes, I guess, in exterior activity?
Look, I don't, in the moment, for me personally, we spoke about reading and yoga and journaling and things. At the moment, I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't do that right now, because that creates more, like, I feel sometimes the feeling of I don't have time to do that, or that puts extra pressure on myself. So often when I'm in a state of like a lot on my plate, right, amped up a lot, I won't engage in those things that have helped in that moment, right? I draw on strategies that I've learned in the past from doing those things historically. So whether it's like, breathing, and sometimes I do it subconsciously. I don't even realize that I'm doing it. Like, and I'll think about, I was thinking about the couple of books this morning and how I was responding to something that came up last night. And I was like, okay, no, but if I do, like, this could happen, and then I could just do it like this. And that just ticks over in like my mind, but I've already learned that. So I guess that's why I'm thinking of protection. And maybe that gives a little bit more context, because the work that's been done previously is helping now, if that makes sense. And so, but if you do, wake up, shower, walk, get into, like, don't get me wrong, I love PJs. We love a pajama. Yeah. Fave.
They are everything.
And also, if it makes you feel good to be in pajamas, please do that. But like, for me, the thought of like, oh, I'm going to go for a nice nature walk, stress, because I'm like, I don't have time to go for a nature walk. Like, absolutely not. But it's just what works for everybody is really different. You know what I mean? I probably should go for a nature walk. It's probably what I need to do, right? But I think it just depends on what you've got going on. And I think pick the strategies that work for you in that moment, but know that even if you are, I'm going to use reading because I'm just feeling like reading's the vibes today. I'm going to talk about reading because I've done tons of reading. I'm not reading anything at the moment because, again, it feels like stress. I don't have time for that. But I've read a lot of books, and I think subconsciously I've absorbed a lot of information that perhaps I don't speak about openly, not like purposely. It just doesn't come up. You know what I mean? But it's sitting in there and it's there waiting. So if you're reading a book and you're like, this is not even helping me, like, what's the point of this? This is boring. It's not, I promise. It's working and it is going to help you one day, like without a doubt.
Yeah.
Don't even know if I answered your question.
Totally cool. No,
Braiding.
You rely on your formerly practiced skills and the things that you know work in certain situations. Things like journaling and yoga aren't always going to be appropriate. Like if I'm starting to have a panic moment and I'm in the grocery store, going into downward dog in the middle of the like coffee aisle, probably not an appropriate place to do that. Pulling out my journal, sitting down on the floor and sobbing might have me like committed somewhere. So probably not the appropriate place to employ those techniques, which is a form of protection. It's protecting yourself and employing the things that you know in that moment are going to work. So like deep breaths, walking out and calling a friend might be more appropriate in that situation. Or putting your phone on do not disturb is a great protection when you are feeling inundated. So like there's different ways to do things by knowing yourself and knowing what's going on in your world. And it again comes down to that know thyself and practice. When you're talking about the working on the stuff behind the scenes, I kept thinking you have to work on your business rather than in your business. And that's such an entrepreneur mindset, but it also applies to everyday life. You have to work on yourself in order to be a better version of yourself. If you just keep going through the motions, there is never any improvement. You are entirely the technician in your life, waking up, going through every step day by day, as opposed to the owner of your world actually working on things. I was talking to, I think, my dad the other day about why I've gone to therapy, and it's not necessarily to work on past trauma, but to build coping skills to continually improve my life. You know, it's not always about unraveling all of everything. It's sometimes in the good moments when you're actually like in a decent place, going to talk to someone so that you're building your toolkit. You're practicing the skills now so that when you get into a place where it is absolute chaos and stress, you don't have to think about it. As you said, like you pull in this deep breathing because it's something you don't even have to think about. Your body just automatically does it. It becomes a habit. It becomes something that you've already formed. So I really think that working on that when you're in a good place is the most important piece of understanding your brain. Even when you feel good, the gratitude practice of, oh, I feel really good right now. I see this. Name the emotion. Name how you're feeling and go for it from there. That is part of minding your mind.
I just want to repeat, because you did, and I guess you spoke about it in the entrepreneurial mindset, like the on it rather than in it. I want to repeat it because when we think about the mind, if you work on it when you're in a good place, like you said, you can subconsciously you don't have to be in it, right? So in those times we're in our mind, we're in it, we're responding from being in that, like in our brain, in the situation. You can't be objectively looking at the situation when you're in the emotions of it, right? So if you've worked on it outside of that, when you're in it, that will come out, I guess, if I just want to read, because I think that's really important. to really do the work when you're in a good space and you feel like you don't need it, or when you need it.
Correct.
Reiteration. Anyway, you're holding out on me because we've talked about you. we haven't touched on these brains. The brain thoughts.
So one of the things that you said before we were starting this really, really kind of hit me in the soul, and I just want to come back to it. You said something.
Don't know what I said.
You said something along the lines of, if I put all of this on everything I'm going through on someone else, I don't think they'd be able to deal. And that's not verbatim. That's like a translation there, because I'm not going to direct quote you. But
yeah,
it's so true that if you take what you're going through and you give it to someone else, the chances are they might not be able to deal. We all have different thresholds and different tolerance levels. Some of us who have been through some more traumatic events may have a higher threshold for emergent situations. Meanwhile, small things like your car dying or losing your keys or your computer crashing might set you off in a totally different direction, because our experience shapes who we are. Our experiences through life and how we are taught to cope with things and how we are put in different situations inform how we respond in the moment. So if you're thinking to yourself, like, I'm going through a lot, always know that that's valid. No matter what it is, big or small, it's important to know that the feeling you are experiencing is valid, no matter what someone else says. And that's all I was thinking, Sal.
No, that's good. I feel like, I was like, I'm thinking like, shit, what did I say? And I wanted, because I did, there was a lot of meanings. Like when I was thinking about that, I was thinking like, if I put everything that I'm going through on someone else's plate, they might not be able to deal. I can't remember what I said exactly. That's what you said. But it's also like the same goes to me. If someone else's plate come into mine, I probably couldn't deal. Because I also believe that we're given by the universe our capacity, what we can handle. And then I think it pushes us. So I think that we're given things in our life up to what we can handle. And whether that just be about, like what I have on my plate right now is things that I have the strategies to deal with, right? So, or need to learn. Does that make sense? And then I feel like, okay, so right now, I was saying to Katie earlier, I rang my sister yesterday and I was like, if one more thing comes on my plate, I'm going to tip over the edge. I'm going to lose it. If I don't laugh, I'll cry. And then last night, of course, more things come on my plate. But I didn't tip over the edge. I was laughing. I was like, you know what? Okay, this is going to be exciting. It's going to be great. Like, I just sort of was like, okay, how can we do this? And then this morning again, you spoke about the car breaking down. My car key battery's flat now. And I'm like, I need to leave the house straight after this recording. I'm like, how am I going to leave the house with a flat car? It was actually my car key battery. The car doesn't work without the key. Anyway, I'm like, how am I going to leave the house? I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll just do the recording and then we'll go. But I'm like, I felt like that's the universe going, okay, so your plate's full. You're at, you know your limit right now. So let's put a bit more on so we can grow your comfort zone. So know that when things are happening in your life that, okay, I believe in the universe and the spirituality and that sort of stuff, right? So that's just a belief system as well. You may not believe in that. But if it helps you, know that you're only given what you can handle, right? The universe will only give you what you can handle. But then it will push you to make you grow. It's not, why does this always happen to me? Why does no one else experience? Trust me, they do experience it. They just don't say. Why does no one else get this? Why do I get all this shit? Yada, yada, yada. That's not what is happening. The purpose of you getting more and more is to expand your comfort zone and to grow. And if you have strategies and you've done some work, not even if you've done no work, just think about this the next time you're like in that state of like, shit. Go, okay, this is what Katie and Sal were talking about. So when I'm feeling good, I'm going to embrace my journaling and my gratitude and my reading and my yoga and my walks and my PJs and or not, whatever. And I'm going to learn things that's going to help me the next time the universe pushes me. Feeling really passionate about this right now.
I love it. It makes me really happy to see. There was a phrase that stuck out in the book that I'm currently reading, and it's from the book Failing Forward. And it said, if at first you succeed, do something harder. If at first you succeed, do something harder. The other phrase I think of on a regular basis is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I love that one.
It's all about growth, and it's all about continuing to build yourself. And the why we're here is to grow and to experience life and to experience emotion. And if we're not experiencing complex emotion and growing, then what is it for? I mean, that's at least a piece of my, I guess, spirituality. If we're going to get into this, man, we're going to get into it. Is the greater meaning is connection and finding who we are. And that's all done through growth. And growth doesn't happen on accident or just overnight. Growth doesn't happen by simply walking through your life completely masked to everything going on. It doesn't happen by going through the motions. It happens when you're in the tough moments, when you're in the places where you're challenging yourself to be and do better. So the being mindful of your mind is a really important piece of that, because you can't grow if you don't know where you're at.
100%. And you're right. And minding your mind, it's not always about, it sounds like awareness, right? So we're not saying minding your mind, like being aware of your mind. We're saying minding your mind in terms of looking after it, fostering it, growing it, doing the things that, you're probably never going to be the smartest person in the room, but like you said, if you coast, like if you don't do harder things when you succeed, you'll never be the smartest person in the room 100%. But, you want to be learning. You want to be growing. And that's the point. So find rooms where you will grow. Maybe that's another strategy, right? So maybe reading doesn't sit with you, maybe journaling, maybe because they're very introspective things, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Introspection in those times is when the only time introspection should be used. You need to look at the outside world all other times. But maybe that's how you grow. Going into spaces, being with other people and learning from them, just being a sponge, absorb their strategies, absorb their recommendations, absorb their advice. That could work for you as well.
Yeah. It's not easy. It is not easy. It takes
It's so easy.
As someone who dealt with daily panic attacks for years and who has complex PTSD, I can tell you it's not easy. It takes a lot of effort and action and, again, that awareness. But just by putting yourself in those spaces and by even listening to this podcast, you're already doing that. So let us know how you are bringing more mindfulness to your mind, and stay tuned for more habits-based things in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Thanks, guys.
Me too. All right. See you later.
Bye.